Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegar.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Craig Neal. He comes from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. And I just say that because one of the things that is important to him is his affinity for people. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and how he uses that. But let me just give you a little background on him. He works with organizations and is concerned about organizations who put themselves in a position to fall victim to doing things the same old way. We use a change management process or a reorg process or any of the processes we bring into corporations for change or leadership or team development. And we often struggle with making them be the same. And then we wonder why we don't get the results that we need. And so what he looks at is how do we innovate with that change management, with any of the development that we do, and looks at mindset and the things that need to go into it. So we're going to talk about authenticity. That will be one of them. The other thing I want to say before we get started, and I'll let you to share your story a little bit, Craig, is I get a lot of different pieces of information, bios from people who are looking to be on podcasts. Craig has a unique, wonderful presentation of what it is that he does in his work. And it just says something about who you are as a person of quality, and that you put your best foot forward. You want to get a message out there, and it's in your communication medium that you use. Your video is fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for, one, having me here on your podcast, Lois. I'm glad we were able to make a solid connection. However, I must throw one thing in there, and otherwise my family would, chase me down the street. I am a born and raised Chicagoan.
Okay.
My hub is at the moment Philadelphia, but I just had to throw that in there. But,
okay.
Nothing against Philly, but I'm a Chicago guy myself.
Okay.
And ultimately, you nailed it on. As we spoke before, my affinity for people, and I truly believe everyone's gifted. The challenge is that most people, they stop short at receiving or getting to that level professionally, personally, and it's typically based off of how they feel about themselves. As we know, the impostor syndrome. So you could be, the best version of yourself if you focus on yourself instead of what everyone else is doing. And then that's what I like to contribute, not as a life coach, because I haven't lived the full life. I don't know what that is, but as a resource to and a person who will collaborate with you to help you believe in that. And then we do the work.
And then you do the work. You're known as the collaborator, right? So I also like that about you. So I want to talk a little bit about that, being your best self, that the imposter syndrome, because I think what I've discovered more and more, it doesn't matter the level of position a person is in. You can get to the very top of the C-suite. And there is that imposter syndrome that still lingers. Talk a little bit about that. Why? Why, when you've had years of success, does that linger?
Very good question, Lois. As I shared before, I spend a lot of my time collaborating, hence the collaborator is my trademark, because I do just that. It's not, if I want to learn how to play a piano and, I go at it alone, a month into it, realize that, wow, you know what? I'm not playing to my full, ability, or, no one's complimenting me enough or sharing that they enjoy my music. There's not a lot of encouragement, from my inner circle. Well, I have a couple of options. I can completely stop playing. I can hire a tutor, throw myself out there in front of like an open mic stage, or, the last option is try a different method. And that's where I usually meet with a lot of my clients, in the collaborative sense. They've perhaps attempted, several, different ways of achieving a goal. However, the choices were based off of tried and true, or just the standardized version of an attempt to want to be what they perceive to be great or best, without really, exploring, how can we improve on strengths that I have? Well, I may not be great with my left hand, so that's where my focal point should be. And it's usually the right instructor, or the right person to assist you, or the right information that you receive that'll help you along your journey of, of course, accomplishing your goals. And in the corporate world, using that, whole musician scenario, in the corporate world, I mean, there are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of keys to the piano as well. And proficiency in every area is rare, right? And the saying is, you can't give 100% to more than one thing. So I find a lot of executives who struggle with that balance. It's great to have content knowledge, and understand the process, but it's another thing to actually do the work to get there. So when you find these leaders and executives struggling with identifying, who they really are and what's best on their terms, those are the ones that usually pave a road that is more effective and more fulfilling for their life, career, or respective journey.
One of the things that I'm seeing in connection with what you're talking about, Craig, right now is there's a push and a pull that I'm seeing between the boards of directors, the stakeholders, the shareholders at the top level, in terms of the short-term financial returns that they need and want, right? And then the decision making that needs to be within the corporation. And so it's that, how much do I dare be myself and put into this what I think is really essential? Because I have this group above me that may not value or see things in the same way. So can you talk a little bit about that struggle, that push and that pull that seems so evident right now?
Wow. You know what, Lois? I'm so glad you asked that. On my website at craigneal.com, I have a page that's focused on, I titled it Duality of Leadership, right? It's almost pitting the executive, one of the C-suite executives, into the position of middle management, right? So there are those who are in the board or on the board that, have their demands. And then it's also fulfilling those demands and passing that downstream. And that person who has, I guess, the authority to make those decisions, staff the right, group of C-suite members to help execute that, is pitted with a series of things. One is the ego, right? So I can do it my way. It's worked for me before. I'm just going to go with my gut, or at the same time demurring to, the demands of those who can, decide to oust you or not.
Yeah.
It's a very thin line. So you're almost playing two roles, right? So before you make that decision that could be, could end your tenure with the firm, or even more so, kind of boast and allow your ego to take over what your primary objective is, then it's not a good spot to be in. I had this a quote that I added on there was the primary objective of leadership is the efficacy of results, right? So that's the primary objective. And if you can't effectively deliver the results, then you're not serving the purpose of your stakeholders and shareholders alike, nor are you serving the purpose of the people in which your organization, facilitates an opportunity. Pardon me, I just want to draw back real quick. Okay, everyone has a title. From experience in the banking industry, VP could be just about anyone, right? Someone can have a title. It's when a leader's mindset, right? And this is before we get the work done, right? This is that preliminary work. Leader's mindset is, okay, my ego is ramped up because I'm posturing as someone with a title, as opposed to identifying what your role is. Right. So hierarchy is set up a certain way. I like I said, I had to dial back real quick because I wanted to make sure I was clear on what I shared. So the board members have a role, right? The investors have a role. The person, working in the restrooms has a role. It helps the entire machine move and shake. And when we can remove those titles, which again, blow up our heads, and identify our role, we can really work on those actionable steps to be the best at those roles.
It's so true. And I was thinking as you were talking about a very early experience in my career. It started in healthcare and was the head of OBGYN at the University of Minnesota for a period of time. And we had a unit with gynae cancer, where the mortality rate was very high. They were end stage of cancer. They were there for really radical research type of treatments to try and impact their life. And so one of the things that we realized that was important was to look at what was going on in the person's mind, in their spirit, their soul, in terms of dealing with this disease. One of the people that we found most useful was the housekeeper, the person who went in and swept the floor, because they heard things. They were safe, for the patient.
Yes.
And they gave valuable information that allowed us to really begin to build hope for people's lives. And it made a dramatic difference. But, when you talk about that, I think so many times we forget the levels that need to be included in that whole process because our ego gets in the way.
Yes. No, very, very good example there, Lois. That person played their role.
Yeah.
And I had a client share with me. He's like, what I find from the medical coding industry. He shared, he's like, I had to have a powwow with my team and explain to them, or also alleviate them of any misconceptions as far as, my presence, at the office. While you guys are doing the things that keep the business running, right? I'm doing or performing activities that help us generate business. We are dependent on one another to make things happen. But the more I'm pulled back into handling things that you guys are doing, the less time I have to generate or develop more long-term efforts to sustaining the business. And the way that it was funny because the way that he was sharing this bit of information, I was like, yeah, I got it. I'm clear. I asked him how did everyone take it? it was a different approach as opposed to the infighting or, you know, asserting authority to make people do things. People work with you. They don't work for you. Right. In this day and age.
So true.
Maybe I shared this with you when we talked before. I don't use the word EMPLOYEE. Right. And if I do, it's usually on a legal standpoint. I think, it connotes ownership. And if we've learned anything from, the last 2-3 years, folks are very, very tired of that. Right. Or if you need to speak about your people, address them as people, associates, my team, my squad, whatever you want to come up with, or whatever the team collectively comes up with, it fosters a collective engagement as opposed to a them and us. Yet in my travels, I still see people, or I still see leaders, saying, "Oh yeah, our EMPL, you can do the rest of it, or them." And it's like, man, you're missing the point. Everyone has a role to play, but even more so, it's what you do in your capacity, which opens up the doors for everyone else to do what they need to do in their capacity. Empowerment is a buzzword people use all the time, but people already have the power. So, what are you really doing? I created a business. I want to get this thing going. I'm realizing I need more people so we can, be more streamlined, or I can't be everywhere every time. Well, you asking those people to come and join you in your fight, whatever your, mission or your vision is, the value end is extremely, extremely important. What do you value? Do you value the people, whether they're working a lower level job, or they're, part of, the house of, I call it the den of chiefs. That is, your
den of chiefs.
Yeah, den of chiefs, right? So do you value them? Do you value their input any differently because of their title? Or is it really prioritizing how you engage and interact with them based off of the role? So,
and that really gets to what you were beginning to talk about with authenticity. It's who are you? Who are you allowing yourself to be? Who are you allowing your people to be? And how do we do that? So right now, with all of what's going on, Craig, with the different voices, what's okay, what's not okay, how do you arrive and be authentic?
Wow. That's a loaded question.
I don't mean it to be loaded, but I think it's what people are fearing. They don't know how to manage that right now.
Right. Well, when we spoke prior to, going live, we talked about time and reflection on the things that we're consuming, whether it's, books, as you have a beautiful collection behind you, or it's, other tools of media, right? They all influence our thinking and in some ways our behaviors. We're products of our environment. Now, when it comes to eliminating the noise, I always caution my clients or, some closer friends to listen to what's right. What's right? What are you thinking inside? What's the right thing to do? Even during tough choices, is the right thing to do to just hear something, read a siren or a headline, and just assume that's what it is? Or should you do your own digging? And with choosing to dig independently, you'll be able to come up with sources that best match your values. My motivation and your motivation may differ, right? Because motivation is intrinsic.
Right.
However, when I have to, recall what's right or what I believe in, what my convictions are, Let's hope that, I'm doing it based off of how I feel through self-reflection, but even more potent, being self-aware, because we're not in this game by ourselves. I like to tout how, self-sustained, my business model is, and we've got everything, but I still need people. I still need to interact with people, but in that frame of us pushing just about 8 billion living humans on this planet. We're very close to it, at least what I recently explored. Right. Where do I fit in? So if someone is, serious about the impact that they can make, in their personal or professional lives and beyond, where do I fit in? I think when you take time to reflect on where you fit in, it gives great pause and allows you to just see things differently, but also respond to those things in a more effective manner. And I don't want to get all philosophical or anything, because again, as I shared with you, I'm not a life coach or, I don't do all, but, these are things that I've learned along with also engaging with other people who shared some valuable content and things to reflect on, right? Because it's not about you. It's not about me. You and I are engaged right now by the draw of running into each other online and, reviewing our respective material. But that material, which is awesome, which I can definitely say you are about people and about, the development of people, development of their thinking, their movement, their acting, and in this context, the call is to be real, be who you are. Stop worrying about everyone else and worry about you first so you can be better for everyone else. My mother used to say, you can't love anyone until you love yourself. So, yeah. Right. One of my favorites, Alan Wise, he says, the oxygen mask principle, you put it on first, then you're able to do more. Right. So self-reflection and developing more self-awareness, I think, is a great approach to finding what your authentic self is. And if you discover the things that you're listening to align with your values and you feel that that's right, then choose right and make that decision.
I often think it's listening to your own negative self-talk tells you a lot about where you're at, right? And for me, that's often been where I begin with self-reflection is, what on earth have I been saying to me? And then I know where I need to go in terms of changing and enlarging myself. But it's hard. It's hard to do that. So I want to talk about something else. You are so involved, Craig, with bringing change into organizations. And change is often a scary thing for companies. It's for people who work within the organizations. It's scary because it often means I will probably be one of the people eliminated. Perhaps, at least that's the fear, right? You also look at how do you develop organizational communication. So you have many forces, in a sense, that are juxtaposed to one another, and you're bringing them together to make stronger companies. Why the ones that you chose? Why organizational change, positioning strategy, communication, change management, restructure?
Yes. So, I have this, I have a process, and I'll speak on that briefly, Lois.
Okay.
So, as I said with our early intro before we went live, I seek time, right? Money's a byproduct of doing, your very best. And, hopefully if everyone who's a professional, I don't care what you're doing, if you're paid for it, then, that's a pro, right? Everything else, in my opinion, is hobbyist or, amateur. So when I engage, there's a series of qualifying that takes place. So I wouldn't engage with a leader who is under the belief that eliminating positions is the path to success, right?
Okay,
Because
that's
it
interesting.
would be anathema to what I believe and what my values, back to that self-reflection,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So not to say that their choice is wrong, it's just not aligned with me. If the whole definition, as I am Craig Neal, the collaborator is someone who partners with you on a shared goal, or a path to accomplishing a shared result.
Right.
So if we're not aligned at the outset, then it's not going to work out. Someone's going to lose, and I don't want to be in that position. So I'm qualifying as we're having conversations, one, to identify, okay, who are you for real? Get rid of all the layers, get rid of the mask, and through intelligent questioning and just a relaxed and candor filled environment, I'm able to kind of get these things. But I also have another process, which I call it my second impressions theory. First impressions, hey, I love you, we're great, I really want to impress you and get to know you, so I'm going to put this grand show on. And when we when we get together for a subsequent meeting, what I'm looking for is consistency, right? So were you that jerk that I met last week? Great. At least you were consistent. And when I want to hang out with jerk friends, and I'll hang out with you. But if you were back and forth, I'm nice, and now I'm not that same person, then I don't see a need to continue on along that journey. So I'm qualifying in that way. But the collaboration for me is true to its form. Identifying, okay, what role do you play in this whole game that we're in? How do you align all of these moving parts? Is it really positioning that we should be focusing on? Is it a reorg needed? Right? Do we have a culture challenge? And anything strategic must be accompanied by something cultural, as far as change.
Right.
People aren't afraid to change. I mean, I run into contractors who have changed their software system or their CRM like 20 times. Yes, people get frustrated with it, but through compliance, they follow it, right? And then some leaders don't even ask to say, hey, how is this working better? Or they're just kind of, hey, this is what we have, deal with it, and here's a manual, right? Because we don't want to hire a facilitator or or a trader for it. But change is not the issue. It's what is behind that change. How is it going to affect me?
Exactly. Yeah.
Is it going to affect me? And at the highest level, when you're in the executive suite, boy, you don't want that change. I can't go back to, putting my resume back out on the street. I can't go back to being, in a vice president's position. I have to stay here, and I'm going to do whatever I can to hold it down. So what I do, professionally, I'm able to get into these different circles and see what the collective approach should be. So I don't assume that the client is bad, or that they're wounded. I'm looking to see, where they do have strengths, and how can we, capitalize off of those strengths? How can we improve them? So my elevator pitch typically, Lois, is my name is Craig Neal. I'm the collaborator. I essentially do that. I collaborate with leaders and their people to enhance collective performance. And that's a big thing. And I do it very fast, right? So, to most people, okay, well, great. That sounded awesome. But what does it really mean? Well,
Right.
areas of organizational development, strategy, obviously, process improvement, and, a wide range of things that have expertise and experience in. But every situation is a brand new experience because it's brand new people through a brand new archetype of an organization that's pulling bits of its culture from him, her, them, and you have to make those things work for everyone, right? Not just for my client, who's was smart enough to hire me and say, "Hey, come on in, Craig." Yeah, but it's more than just you. So when you ask me about all those kind of juxtapose, it all depends, but they all are moving parts of the whole, and they need to be addressed in some way or another.
They surely do. And, Craig, one of the things that is part of it that I am reflecting on a lot these days is Gallup's recent research where they looked at what's happened to trust. And they have found in their research that it's about 24% of people trust what goes on in their companies. My reflection is, how do you do work without trust? And so would you just share what your experience is and what you're finding relative to that right now?
Excuse me. Well, great. Let's talk about trust, right? What is trust? You get trust from the gate. I'm going to trust you. If I meet someone new, I don't know them. I have nothing to, compare their, I don't have enough information to compare. I'm just going to trust. But yes, I'm going to verify. And in this world we live in, what we see and what we engage in our circles, and even in the workplace, I mean, there's a lot of discourse and bad actors who aren't so trusting. I'm not talking just in the, political sector, right? I'm talking about just people making decisions that are self-aggrandizing or with the ability to create whatever we want these days, right? You want to start a company, go for it. Trust is a factor. Anything that I do, it requires a lot of trust. The coinage of my realm, is through introduction and referral, right? I only work with a handful of clients in a calendar year, and I really mean that. So I don't seek volume. I seek the value based off of, one, am I going to learn something new working with this client? Am I going to provide new things for, that will impact their organization and allow, the real change agent to be just that. But they've got to trust me. Right? It's not what I say, it's what I do. If the reflection of my personal life is aligned with my professional life, though I just have my life. That's how I see things. So I just happen to have some skills. So I don't separate the two. But am I consistent? As I mentioned that, second impressions theory, right? Am I consistent? Was I the same guy? Yes, I'm going to open up a little bit more. We're going to get more familiar with one another. But the trust factor, losing trust because you appeared to be something different or your actions reflected something different than what you sold me, is where I think people in general, run into, more challenges. I had this post out where I asked leaders to ponder this: who's the most important person in your organization? And it goes on and on. Folks can look at it online or whatever. But if you chose yourself, you're wrong. If you chose, Betty, who's been with the company for 40 years, wrong again. If you chose Matt, who is the, best producer, you're wrong. The most important person in your organization is the last one you hired, right? Because you sold them a dream. They trusted you, and they're following you on this mission that you sold them on. You told them that, hey, we have this, we have that. There's a lot of opportunity and possibilities are there, and they're trusting you. Don't fail them. And it doesn't matter, the tenure of the rest of the team necessarily, because this new person can, has the ability to make or break the future of your organization, right? If you've messed up in the past, okay, you messed up, right? We can remedy that, or, perhaps, repair some of that damage. But your new person, right? It's so powerful, and that person coming into an environment that's not conducive with what you shared with them, more than likely will leave, right? The pandemic, it wasn't folks saying, hey, you know what, I can't stand the organization I work with, or the leader that I work with. It was like, hey, I'm coming to the realization that I have more options.
You have a choice.
When I get back, if things aren't, aligned with what I want, then I'm going to find, the exit, the exit as soon as possible, because I can start my own business. I can go work for with a competitor, or, I can, just sit here and, be aloof, which I'm seeing quite a bit. Right? I don't care anymore. How did they hire this person with more, with less experience, more money? I was loyal. I stayed here, and this is how they treat me, even through and this person's, sure, money's not always the factor. I think studies say anywhere between 20 and 25%. That's a big deal for people, but, you still got, 75 to 80% of people saying that that's not their motivator. That's not their driver, right? It's autonomy and feeling as though you are presenting value. When I go on dry spots, and I'm not doing things as actively as I want to, in life, I'm looking for an opportunity to express my value or share. But trust is very important. Yeah. And if a leader or an executive shows themselves trustworthy, not just for the event, but over the long haul, they're going to find themselves basically breeding that same sentiment among their team.
Craig, I just feel like we could talk for hours. You have shared some really, really important things. I think one of the things we don't talk about enough is that onboarding, that new employee. And Gen Z is telling us, look, we're here. Please pay attention, right? And we're still not hearing it. So we could go on and on. But before we close, I want to know, what did we leave out that we absolutely should have talked about, didn't talk about, or we left unfinished?
You know what? I mean, you're correct. We could go on and on. I believe we are aligned in, our affinities. One thing I would love to leave your audience with is 3 key mindsets, right? One, realize and recognize just alone and as a collective, meaning your team, you're absolutely unique. You're different. You operate differently. Yes, there are standards to follow, and obviously, regulations that you're maybe industry dependent. But remember, the sum of everyone involved allows you to stand out. Your only, competitive advantage is in the company you keep. So focus on that and identify how we can use all of these strengths. Focus on cognitive diversity instead of, the happenings of today wanting to set up, a study on diversity. And, we've been talking about this for 40 years in the development, space, right? Beyond that, I'm sure. right? Recognize people, as who they are, and let's be professional about it. But you have something unique to contribute to the world, contribute to whatever that vision or that mission that your organization is on. It's just identifying that. So in order to identify that, you have to realize a couple of things. There is no competition, right? You're competing against yourself, becoming better every day, incrementally or on a larger scale, right? But better. There's no substitute for better. That's a shameless plug. That's my trademark as well. But the truth of the matter is, you can become better at what you do. So you eliminate the mindset of, hey, I have to copy, what the best in class is doing. Or, I'm going to do everything I can so I won't be seen as the worst performing, organization in my industry when the award ceremony comes out, when the awards start getting passed out. You can do a lot better. It's really just identifying the distinct ways in which you can approach the needs of the markets that you want to serve. Because commoditization, whether you're in the service or the products industry, right? Everyone's doing something, unless it's some new idea that has its intellectual property, protections. Most things are just regurgitation of things that have been happening, right? But if you change the environment in which you produce or offer those services, right? That's where you're going to, derive new energy and new ideas, which propel you to innovate, right? So what Mary may have suggested 5 years ago, don't throw that away as a no-go. It might be relative and relevant for the times that we're in right now. So let's keep those things going, and let's honor everyone as part of the team, because people choose to work with you, not for you.
I love that. People choose to work with you, not for you. And it's such an important thing not to forget, but so easy to put on the back burner sometimes. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
Appreciate you back. Thank you, Lois.
What else? Anything else that we have missed that we absolutely should have covered?
I mean, there's a lot to cover, and I would hope that you'd have me on as a guest again.
You know what? We will have you on again, and next time we're going to talk about collaboration. How do you collaborate?
Yes, and
ready to do that?
With people. Yeah, I would love to. You collaborate with people, right? But you collaborate with not just your key people. You collaborate with all people.
Absolutely, absolutely. On that note, collaborate with all people. Don't leave people behind. They're all a part of this big process and system that we're working to make better. So, Craig, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your experience and your wisdom. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lois, for having me. Appreciate you as well.
You are so welcome. And for those of you who are listening to Building My Legacy podcast today, thank you for being with us. Remember to go to our website as well at www.buildtomorrow2, and also our newest website, startwithcollaboration.com. So again, Craig, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you again, Lois, and you have a great rest of your day. I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
With that, we are done. And I'll just thank you so much. What a gift. And it was.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegar. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegar, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.